Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are delighted to be speaking with the stars and creative responsible for the new movie, Hard Truths. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the African members on the call today, starting with Philippe Patterson in North Carolina, Carolyn Hines in Toronto, Canada, Ray Cornelius in Atlanta, Georgia, Karan Lenoir Kelly in Charlottesville, Virginia, Brandon Collins in New York. Let's see, we've got a full house for you today. Dana Abercrombie in New York, New York, Derek Dunn in Washington, D.C., Niger Chambers in Washington, D.C., Michael Sewell in Washington, D.C. I see our nation's capital is well represented. And of course, Sam Leggett also in the nation's capital. Kit, are you a member? Okay, well, I believe this is your first time on a roundtable with us, so welcome. Tell us what market you're in.
Bay Area, California.
Okay, and Miss Kit Stone in in Northern California in the Bay Area. I'm gonna let you guys do what you do so well, and I'll see you on the other side.
Look at you! Fix your face! You're dealing with the public, handling people's food.
Stop! Please.
Oh, you can pipe down and all standing there like an ostrich. People. Can't stand them. Cheerful, grinning people.
Mum, I'll see you in a bit.
Where do you think you're going?
For a walk.
People are gonna accuse you of loitering with intent.
Your sister called me.
Who?
Chantel.
I know who my sister is, thank you very much. When are you gonna settle down?
Why, you have somebody for me?
Yes, Jesus.
At least he was a single man. Do you want to come to the flat on Sunday? The girls would like to see you.
You know I've got health issues. I might spend the day lying in bed.
She makes everything about her. She's rude, man.
I've been harassed by people all day. I'm sick to death of it. I just want it to all stop.
Why are you so angry? Why can't you enjoy life?
I don't know.
You worry me, you know.
Pansy, what's going on?
I'm so lonely.
What are we gonna do about it? I don't understand you, but I love you.
And her over there with that fat baby, parading it around in the little outfit. Not dressed for the weather, nah, with pockets. What's the baby got pockets for? What's it gonna keep in its pocket?
Hi, Brandon Collins from the Media and Popcorn Podcast. My question is for Marianne. Congratulations, first of all, on your recent New York Film Critics Circle Award.
Thank you.
What is your process for preparing for a character like Pansy, who goes through one of the most emotional yet realistic depictions of inner conflict I've ever seen on film?
Well, basically, it's Mike Lee's process. You know, we have a very intensive rehearsal process where we create the characters from scratch and build them, you know, talk them into existence, feel them in our bodies, you know, move them. And yeah, that's basically how we do it.
Thank you. Incredible work across the board.
Thank you.
Ray Cornelius here with Upfront Inside Atlanta's entertainment industry. This question is for both ladies. Having worked together, now you're being reunited in this film. What was that like? And I sort of read that some of it was improvisation. I can never say that word. That you improvised a lot of your lines. Can you talk about that in those real intense scenes?
What was it like? Well, it was a lot of fun coming together, but we've known each other a really long time. Obviously, I live in London and Marianne's in LA, so it's just lovely to be to be together again in London and hanging out as well as doing the work and, you know, spending the time sort of creating the characters. So it feels really comfortable and it feels really easy. And I think we probably, we laugh a bit too much and a bit too hard sometimes. I don't know, Mike would probably say more about that. In terms of improvisation, there's no improvisation on screen. Everything comes from, or the starting point is improvisation, but by the time we get to filming, it is very much scripted. So yeah, nothing is sort of made up or on the fly. You know, part of the process is about creating the scenes with Mike. Are you going to say anything about spending time with me?
No,
How wonderful I am.
well, it was very hard. No, it was fabulous working together. We've got a shorthand. Yeah, just enjoyed, you know, working off her ideas and her creativity and of course Mike's. It's a very collaborative experience.
Hello all, my name is Philippe from Taji Mag. This is a great film. I wanted to know, because the film concentrated a lot on mental health. And I want to learn, like, and know, how has this film changed your perspective on mental health?
Oh gosh.
What was the question?
It's on it focuses on mental health. How does it change your perception
Of mental health? Interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think when we were doing it, we weren't thinking this is about mental health. Do you know what I mean? We were exploring the characters in a very organic way.
I mean, I think, if I may say so, it's a very interesting question, but the truth is that, I mean, the film's been seen reasonably widely now, but it hasn't yet been on general release anywhere. But a huge number of people have said in different ways, I know a pansy, there's a pansy in my family, the pansy reminds me of so-and-so and such. And really, that's an endemic, the pansies of this world are plentiful. And, you know, in thinking about them and in indeed creating this character, I mean, certainly what, as far as I'm concerned, and I think we can say as far as we're concerned, as Marianne has implied, there wasn't and isn't an agenda of this is about mental health. Obviously, there's a condition here which could be seen in that perspective and could be dealt with in some way, in some circumstances, by mental health professionals. But that wasn't the starting point of what the actual film is concerned with or about as such. So therefore, to answer your question, I certainly can't report anything about it changing my attitude to mental health any more than I think you can, really.
No,
Well, thank you guys, I really appreciate it.
thank you.
Hello, I am Karan Lenoir Kelly with Karanism.com and Love Music Pleasure. And I want to talk about love for a minute because Pansy was such a full range of emotion and her role was so visceral in its grief, in its anger, fear, the judgment, the depression, the anxiety. They were all out front for everybody to see. And I thought it was really brilliant, Marianne, that you did not hold back. But I'm curious how you stayed sane while playing someone who was so deeply entrenched in their own grief, how you kept it together.
Well, I mean, we're very good at getting in and out of character. We're very strict about that discipline of just like, I am not Pansy. We would never refer to the characters, you know, as I. It's always in the third person. So there was always a real separation between myself and the character, you know.
When you're in character, you're really in character.
Character, you're in properly, hardcore, you know. And when you're out, you're out. You're laughing with Michelle or Twain or David or any of the other actors. Yeah.
It was communicated so beautifully that there was still love around her, even though what she put out into the world was different. So brilliant performances. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Sowell from Washington, D.C. Congratulations with this film. I felt with this film, one thing that I've seen other films talking about family dealing with mental illness is there's a lack of authenticity. But here, it's all of that is a sense of saw a sense of realness with this film. As performers, what was the conversation between as co-leads in this film, talking about how you wanted to pick realness of family dynamics on this film?
Again, that comes from Mike's process. I don't think it's down to, just down to what we do. I mean, when you're creating the characters with Mike, you are creating a whole character. So you're talking about, where they were born, their family life, all the relationships, all the relatives. You really layer it up. And it's not just about talking, it's also, there are practical things that we do. So I suppose, what makes it special is that it really does come from a place of, real truth, because obviously, we are, we're drawing on, our own lives, but also the things that we've observed, out in the world. And I suppose that's what makes that family dynamic special. But also I think it's sometimes, it's all the other things that, sometimes get ignored. It's also about, like, Susie, it's about the set design, it's about the costume, it's about it being absolutely authentic to those people. And that's what sort of gives it its reality, if you like. It's about making sure that their homes really do reflect the homes of those kinds of people, and and being very truthful, and even how people speak, the cadences, or the fact that these are people that are Black British, so they're gonna use certain words in certain places, they're gonna code switch, that's what these people do, and that's what I think what makes Hard Truths so special, really.
I mean, from my point of view, and this applies to all of my films in one way or another, but it's not least really important in this one, is that for me, the privilege I have as a writer-director is, obviously, I could not sit in a room and write the dialogue that they are saying. What my job is to create a situation, a framework, a creative environment where certainly there's a lot of input from me into who and how the characters are and what the issues are. But for example, when we're actually dealing with the dialogue, I am there to learn from them, because they know how these particular people would talk culturally, and what Michelle just referred to. And in a way, therefore, it makes it possible for us to have rich and precise and accurate dialogue and attitudes as well, and other things, because it's a collaborative creative process. My attitude to actors in the context of this film, and indeed all of my films, is that they are fellow artists and not just interpretive actors. They're there to make a contribution on all kinds of levels, and that includes bringing their own cultural experience and knowledge to the table.
Thank you, and that was definitely felt throughout this film as I was watching it. So thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, just as a footnote to that, I mean, the two actresses who play the two women who are having their hair done in the, who are absolutely, I mean, they got one scene each, but boy, are they accurate and on the case, aren't they?
Yeah, completely.
Because they're brilliant character actors, and that they really can tap into those worlds and experience.
Yeah.
Nigeria Chambers from Big O Belt Media. I typically don't try to get too personal with some of these questions, but I can't help but to just take this moment in the space to really reflect on something and how this film really personally touched me. Pansy is a character that you all talked about created, but somebody I know very familiar. And I think this story really reinforces a lot of the lessons I have learned through therapy. And it's really about like leading with love and really understanding how everybody grieves differently. I'm wondering for you all, if you can talk a little bit about that message and conveying that message about grieving and how everyone is able to identify that and how it looks in multiple different ways through these characters and their performances.
I mean, I think it's like, for us, it was just, it was they just had a very different perspective
Yes.
of their relationship with their mother. Their mother meant something quite different to each of them. There was love there, but yeah, it was just
it is that difficult thing, I think, in families where you know, people perceive a certain situation in completely different ways. And also it's that really difficult truth that some of us have a very different relationship with a parent than our sibling, or, you know, and in families that is really tough sometimes. But when we're doing the work, I wasn't, you know, when we were doing the work, I wasn't really thinking about that. And because obviously, you know, performing Chantel, I'm doing Chantel's version of it. So it's only sort of afterwards when I reflect back, I kind of go, oh, okay, that's quite difficult. But isn't that how we all live? You know, we're all sort of going down our own little path, and we're quite selfish about other people, you know. But yeah. But it is, I mean, I think that is the difficult. I think one of the things about the film now, you know, having seen it quite a few times, and what I find very hard watch, it is the pain in that family that is that needs to be sort of repaired. I find it really, it still affects me watching it, really.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just to add, you know, we all are very protective about our loved ones and the legacy of our loved ones, and that's always going to cause some friction, which we see in the film here. So beautifully done, and thank you for the time today.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, Dana Abercrombie, The Coalition. I love this movie with my entire fiber. And what I wanted to talk to you about, question kind of for all of you, but especially for Mr. Lee, is this is a perfect bookend to Happy Go Lucky, where you're dealing with people who live and feed off an extreme emotion. And we know that there are many layers to the character, with Pansy. And so when creating this, do you define those other emotions first, despite the fact that it's really being kind of led by anger? So in the writing process, and also when both creating this character, you as well, Marianne, which emotions do you really feel that you wish other people would see?
I mean, to be helpful, I think I understand what you're asking, which is quite complex. I don't think it's possible, nor would it be appropriate to have in mind, and tell me if this is wrong in terms of your question, to have in mind wanting people to experience one emotion or another. Because what we're actually doing is creating a character in 3 dimensions with a complexity of stuff on and therefore the implicit assumption is with the whole film is that we create a real world, a reality which is multi-layered and has the complexities of the real world, and therefore it's there for people to react to in all kinds of different ways, depending on who you are and how you relate to it, really. So in a way that the concept, which I think is your question, of you know, what particular emotion do you want people to experience, or do you want to sort of single out, doesn't really have isn't really in a way relevant, or it doesn't manifest itself in a practical way, really. Does that make sense to you, Mary?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think it's everything is so built into the character that she's just going about her business. She's not thinking I'm really angry or I'm really sad, or, you know, she's just living and reacting in the way that she reacts to stuff, you know, and that that happens to be in an angry manner in a lot of instances.
I mean, look at the way she on that day in the film, when she first of all has an argument with a young couple who are jumping around on a sofa. Then she has an argument with the shop assistant. Then she has an argument with the guy in the car park, and then, you know, she goes home and she lies, she fabricates, she almost fantasizes about the other guy tried to kill her, and the woman accused her of stealing a sofa, which was bullshit, basically. Because, you know, but she's not, you see her after the sofa shop experience, sitting in her car, you know, sort of getting over it or boiling with rage or whatever she's doing when the guy shows up in the car park. But she's not, I don't think she's thinking, I am sad or I am depressed. I mean, she's thinking about them and about the complexity of where she is, isn't she, really?
I'd love to talk about the repression of anger that I kind of feel in this film. Pansy's husband and son kind of orbit silently around her, but there's a clear passive aggression, you know, such as like throwing away her flowers and things like that. And when I rewatched it just recently, it seems like outside of Pansy, everything else is very quiet around her. Do you think, well, no, one, why was it important to have everything else be kind of quiet around her? And do you think that the silence is worse than Pansy's own outward expression?
Go on, Mr. Lee. What do you reckon?
Well, apart from anything else, I think the guys have been worn down. I think that, you know, I think they really, I think the way that the silence you talk about in the house is not necessarily consciously, just the way that the guys have got used to dealing with Pansy and the way she is. I mean, I think it just is, it's a coping mechanism, if you like. So I don't think it can be, I don't think your observation, which is very, very good, can be, and your analysis of what's going on can be analyzed or described in terms of imagery or artistic decisions. I mean, it is a condition of the relationship, a function of the relationship. And I think, you know, to a great extent, you know, they've sort of given up communicating, really, basically. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Especially in the case of Moses, I think, you know,
Yeah.
he's just, that's all he's known, really.
I mean, you know, you look at Moses, I mean, you can see, I mean, you know, he's not by no means is he moronic or substandard intelligence or anything. I mean, he's interested, he's got interests and passions, but they're all, you know, he's not fulfilled, he's not been stimulated to fulfill himself. I mean, obviously that's an implicit criticism of the way he's been brought up and probably of the educational system as well, in some way. And as for Kirkley, I mean, he's had years of it, and I think he's had enough of it, really.
Thank you.
How's it going? Derek Dunn, Reviews and Done. Happy Tuesday.
Thank
I had a
you.
question for Marianne and Michelle. If there was one song to describe your characters' arcs, what would you pick and why?
Oh, wow. I don't know about an arc, but I was listening to quite a lot of Beyonce when I was in character, and also, you know, that was a kind of what I enjoyed very much about Chantel was her positivity and her feeling that, you know, she felt good about herself. And so so there was a lot of dancing around to Queen Bee. So, you know, pick any of Renaissance, really. was you know, her jam, really.
Wow.
Did she have music?
Yeah, there was no music in Pansy's life. She didn't enjoy. Do you know what I mean? Which is, for me, is sacrilege that she weren't into music. But yeah, no, just
But your question was, what song would sum up her?
Yeah,
I know, and I'm
art.
trying to think of one.
Oh
Lord,
my gosh.
what would?
Well,
I
I
mean,
could,
put me
we
like-
are we are family.
Not we are family.
A
A different version of it.
Yeah.
The irony of your question, or the paradox, in relation to Marianne and what she's just said, is Marianne is a very, very talented musical person. In fact, you may or may not know, she actually composed the score for my film, Career Girls. I mean, and she's a great singer and everything. So, you know, the absence of music in Pansy's life is a massive, huge. I mean, one might have we might have done a character where we could exploit Marianne's musical capabilities, but Pansy certainly isn't.
No,
Mm.
I'm trying to think of a good.
Feel like it would be something. I just feel like it would be something classical, though. I feel like it'd be something quite
Crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's a death march.
Oh
Death
my
March,
gosh.
probably.
There you go.
Good grief.
Well, if you will ask as as off the wall question as that, you can only expect an off the wall answer.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Carolyn for Carolyn's YouTube channel and podcast. I love this film. I saw it at TIFF and I actually spoke to some Black women and a few Black men with Caribbean and West Indian heritage after I saw the film. I'm Barbadian. So
Yeah.
I love hearing the different West Indian accents and dialects in this film. But something that is also intimately familiar with me being Caribbean is how we deal with grief or don't deal with grief. And the way we express grief is actually through anger. You know, like in the theater, people laughed at her anger, and I laughed too. But then the switch happened, and her anger stopped being funny because I saw it as grief, and then I also saw it as fear. Like I see Pansy as being filled with fear. You know, so I want you to talk about first, Mike. I want you to talk about observing people to be able to write characters who express grief in such, I think, intense but also internal ways, because fear is also grief and grief is also fear and anger. And for you, Marianne, can you talk about that switch that happens where her anger stops being funny and it starts being devastating? Because there's something that you do, I think, in your performance that just really solidifies like how sad Pansy is as a character and she isn't able to express that. So can you talk about working through that? And for you, Michelle, talk about Chantal as being the person who has to watch her sister struggle with being afraid and being sad and being filled with fear and can't confront her with that because she knows that Pansy's going to react in a way that's not going to be helpful. So she just can only watch and be there for her. So I want three of you to talk about just this aspects of fear and anger and like watching a character like work through it. So Mike, you can go first. We'll just talk about structuring this film and this character about fear and grief.
I mean, people have said to me, you're not, but people have said, so obviously what you've done is you've made it sort of funny to start with, and then you've, in the kind of second act of the film, you've stopped it being funny and it's gone. And that is not the case, because life is comic and tragic. And when you're talking about, it's interesting what you're saying, you're isolating grief, you know, in a way, it's a complex and compound thing. I mean, what's tragic in this story about what's happening to these characters, especially to Pansy, is there from the get-go. It's there. It's always been there, and it's there. The way we look at them, the things that are happening, are inevitably tragic and hilarious at the same time. And the same. To answer your question about the structure of the thing, I mean, again, you know, one is looking at, I mean, the structure is about the order of which things happen and how A affects B and so on, which is all anyone could ever say about structure. But the structure isn't a function of a view of stability or mental instability or any of those things, because all those things are on the go all the time, basically. If that answers, that's not quite what you're asking me to talk about, but what you are, I think, asking me to talk about isn't something that is quite as straightforward as that. I mean, obviously, the film has a structure because that's my job, is to give it one. But the structure is an organic structure. It's a function of what is happening psychologically.
Oh gosh, right.
Yeah. And can you remind me a bit of the question? Because I think it's to do also with the fear and the
yeah, just like how you went about working through her fear and her anger, because I saw them as two very distinct emotions that comes through very differently in the way she speaks. You know, there's the aggressive and then there's the defensive. So I saw a lot of her reactions as more as being defensive, like she's trying to stop people from attacking her, so she attacks first.
That's right.
Which I actually kind of relate to a lot because I used to be very much like that.
Okay. I think we first have to kind of explain the way in which we work, which is very organic. Do you know what I mean? The characters are finitely created. So when, for example, we're in character and we're exploring certain things, you're not thinking, oh, I'm doing fear now, she's afraid. Do you know what I mean? Or she's angry. It just really organically happens with the characters and the interactions.
Because they're real.
Because they're real. They become very real. So, gosh, you know.
Yeah, I think by the time we get to the point at which we are doing the scenes for the film, you know, there's been so much history and backstory and work that's been done about the relationships that you're seeing, you know, in the family, that it's not that you're thinking, oh, I'm reacting to, or you know, my character is reacting to this. It's this fear or this grief. It's become their ongoing relationship is, you know, is kind of morphing and changing as they are both going through the grief. So it is very real in that respect. It's that sort of, you know, in any family, you know, you are going through a series of different sort of aspects within the family. So we know that, you know, people have just gone through Thanksgiving and what that means to all those people around that table. Everyone's having a kind of different experience based on what happened in the last year and the phone conversation that they had and who died in the last year and who's getting married and what, you know what I mean? It's very much like that in, you know, creating these relationships with Mike. Yeah.
I mean, I think at some level, it's worth just logging the fact that, I mean, obviously conventionally in a huge amount of work on movies and indeed on plays, in fact, I would say the norm is actors, one way or another, do very often, if not extremely often, think about the action that they're playing, think about the mood that they are expressing, thinking about the mood they want to convey to the audience at a particular moment. But that's what Marianne and Michelle have just been talking about, is that that's not what happens at all in this context, because we've created these characters in such a rounded and organic way and real way that the complexity of the actor does all the work. My job is obviously to distill it and structure it into a dramatic cinematic form. But the job of the actor in this context is not to think, what action shall I play? What emotion shall I isolate? And so on and so forth. It's a different, therefore it doesn't, that aspect of your question sort of doesn't really apply to this film. And therefore, in some way, if you think the film succeeds in being a successful depiction of real people, then that's got something to do with it.
No, like you, I think you answered it because, and I think you did succeed tremendously because it is one of my favorite films for the year. But also, I'm just like these women. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Samuel Leggy with JUS Media Productions. I had the honor of being able to check out your film at TIFF this year. Marianne, one of the best performances this year. It was so real and visceral. Pansy, wears her emotions on her sleeves. Of course, she lashes out, but I kept feeling, even in the very beginning of the movie, this debilitating anxiety and fear. And I was kind of like, as the movie progressed, we know what that comes from, but it feels like there's a combination that's happening. Trauma and undiagnosed mental health. And the interesting thing, and I love how you guys do the characters around her, because basically their perception of her is one thing. They think that she's just angry, or she's just lashing out, or she's just being her, she's in one of her moods. But I could feel, even from the very first moment she shows up, that this intense fear and anxiety that she's trying to deal with, and she's just reacting. And the only relationship she had that she can kind of work with is her sister. And it's just so amazingly done. But I wanted you guys to kind of break down how you did that, because a lot of people, even now, are misdiagnosed. They're not caught with the mental health they're really dealing with. A lot of people coming out of the pandemic have dealt with so much trauma and fear that they still have not even touched on or dealt with, and people just overshadow it. That is normal life now. So I wanted you, Marianne, to kind of take what you kind of got from that to break down. If you've diagnosed her yourself, I mean, you can break that down, but it's the human side that she connects with, everything that feels so real. So I wanted you guys to kind of talk towards that. But Marianne, specifically you, thank you.
Well, thank you, first and foremost. But I'm thinking I did try and diagnose her. I did, but I mean, I don't know how useful that was, because whatever the diagnosis was, she was not going to go and get help for it, or she was not in this type of family growing up where somebody would have said, oh, let's take you off to the doctor because you don't like this or that or the other. Do you know what I mean? She would have just had to get on with it. So basically, it's like, how does somebody go through the world with all these fears and likes and, well, no likes, but dislikes, and survive it? And I think that's when you get a pansy, I guess, who doesn't like being outside, doesn't like interacting with others. And, that's the result.
And Mike, I mean, thank you for building the word around it. Can you speak towards kind of how you developed around that concept and making sure that it was still a human story? Because it feels real. I mean, it honestly feels real. Like this could be like my aunt or my relative.
Well, not to say too much about how we go about doing these things, but what is important is that we start by, I mean, what I always do, starting to work individually with each actor, is to ask the actor to talk about a lot of real people that she knows. And from that, I really choose one or two source characters, as you might call them, to build as the basis of the character that we then take over and develop creatively. All of which is to say that, therefore, that the world we create is rooted in the real world. This is not a fantasy world. I mean, apart from anything else, I don't make movies about movies. These are films about life, about real people. And we start by looking at the real world. I mean, by taking our sketchbook out into the real world and using the material to get it going. And to some degree, that's part of the answer to your question, really. We're not, the characters are neither completely made up out of nowhere and nothing, nor, and this is very important as well, nor are they, as is the case in many other kinds of movies, nor are they simply a version of the actor herself. These people are not playing themselves. It is character acting. All the actors in this film and indeed all of my films, and that includes all of the actors, even the ones playing the most minor roles in this film, are character actors who are doing real people like the people out there in the street. And really, in a way, that is what you're asking about, basically. That's where it comes from. So that it's the, if you like, the complexity of real people, the three-dimensional nature of real people comes with it comes with a package. It's built into from the word go. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question at any level?
Yes, it absolutely did. Thank you, Mike. You perfectly framed that. And Michelle and Marianne, you guys' amazing relationship in this is shown. So thank you guys so much for all you've done. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruben Peralta from Miami, South Florida. Um, for Marianne, and it's well known that Mr. Lee doesn't use script when he approached for a project. How do you develop Bansi? How do you create it? What was the direct inspiration? For Mr. Lee, one of the things that I love about the movie is the production design. It's the house, it's Bansi house. I think it works like another character. How was that work? What do you wanted to create around her?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, with the character, creating the character, I mean, as Mike says, we start off with a list of people that we know from life and we talk about them, and then, we settle on a few of those people for our basis to start building the character. And that we do in great detail. What school they went to, the subjects they did at school, what their teacher's name was, who their neighbors were, who lived across the street. Then, Michelle and I would work together with Mike, and we'd discuss, their extended family and the traditions and all that. So that starts, that's the beginning of creating these characters.
I mean, no actress played Pearl, the mother, but we talked her into existence in completely three dimensions. And obviously, I from time to time took not the role. I didn't act her, but I said, okay, she would say this, she would do that, and in fact, and eventually, at one point, I said, when we were talking into existence, an occasion when Pansy goes round to see, rather reluctantly, goes to see her mother. I said, well, she actually goes into the room and she's dead. Pearl is dead in the bed. What was your reaction to that?
Oh. I wanted to kill him, to be quite honest with you, because we loved Pearl so much, but she was so real to us that it was like, no. No, she's not.
Yeah, because Pansy is verbal, but also physical. It's very physical.
But that is really what we've just said about Pearl and the death of Pearl is very much is really an answer to your question. Basically, it's how we created this world that takes on a complete three-dimensional resonance.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, all. I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic out of Chicago. And I got to see this at TIFF as well with Sam. And I totally agreed that the performances were riveting. He and I walked out debating what did it mean, right? So Mike, congrats on that, because you had us talking all the way to the next film. But I didn't see it at first. I did not like Pansy's character. I did not like Pansy, excuse me. As I guess I'm a little bit embarrassed, because at first I was identifying with Curtly and Moses, and I was I was on that side, feeling for them, like, how are they doing this? How are they going through all that? So that's my preface to my question. I have a question for you, Mike, first, is that you talked a little bit about how some people saw the humor, and again, I didn't see the humor. But I particularly noticed that you did infuse some joy in there, particularly with this one scene where you had Michelle with her daughters, and they're talking and dancing and doing and whining and that type of thing. Can you talk about why you decided that scene or that relationship, because that wasn't critical to the relationship between the two sisters. And then I would like to ask both ladies that going through this particular film, was there any hard truths outside of this film that it made you confront or think about?
Oh gosh, any hard truths that it made me think about? Oh my goodness me. I actually I'm an only child, so I think it was really interesting. I think I personally have spent quite a long time wondering what it would be like to have a sibling, and then this experience went, maybe missing that sibling, and I think that maybe this experience went, maybe it might not have been so much fun, but yeah. Oh gosh.
I mean, it's interesting your reaction to the film. As far as I'm concerned, your reaction to the film, like for example, you didn't laugh at all or very much, and you didn't like Pansy, it's absolutely legitimate. I mean, as I said several times in this conversation, it all works because of the three-dimensional complexity of the characters and starting with the way we've created them. So you react how you react, and it's absolutely your prerogative to sympathize with Pansy or not. That's to do with you and your own experience of life, and that's what I'm concerned with in the films that I make. To say, okay, well, this is the world which I want you to believe in, but how you react to it and how you deal with it is over to you, really. And yes, I mean, interestingly enough, yes, people did laugh in the first part of the film, both, first of all, at TIFF, and when it was screened in New York, and when it was screened at the San Sebastian Film Festival in Spain with Spanish and Basque subtitles, and at the London Film Festival. But that doesn't mean to say that your reaction to it is in any way not legitimate, because it is. But it's just your prerogative, really. Because I mean, if you told me, and I hope you're not, but the problem you had with the film was you didn't believe in the characters, or you didn't believe in, which is not what you're saying at all, then I would have a problem. But life is, people are complex. People ask me, where do you get your ideas from? Well, I've only got to walk down the street and encounter 10 people, and there are 10 possible films there. Everybody is interesting, but at the same time impenetrable and very readable and complex and etc. So that's what it's all about, really.
And Mike, could you speak to the scene that I spoke to about the joy? And I'd like to hear about the joy where you had some you did actually brought some levity or show a different side of life with Michelle and her daughters.
That's how, and it starts in the first place with the kind of person that Chantel is. And she's, she's positive. I mean, God, you can see she's not got a partner. She's obviously, I mean, we actually, it's not expressed in the film, but what we did decide is that each of the two daughters had a different father, for example. But she's got bright, positive daughters. She has a very good relationship with them. And that's there to exploit and explore in the context of, and obviously it goes without saying, the contrast between Pansy and Chantel is one of the main dramatic premises of the movie, obviously.
And lastly, Marianne, I was wondering if you could answer the question about any hard truths that this film might have had you confront.
Oh, no.
In a word, no.
Yeah. What did it make me confront? Just we're quick to judge people, And I think it's in the process of making it, it's made me, give people a bit more of a squeeze. like my friend here, you know,
Mhm.
just sort of not to be too hard on her when she starts ranting.
she's very sensitive.
Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate the film as well.
Thank you.
Mike, Michelle, Marianne, we thank you for this incredible piece of work. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.